Well, hello and welcome to another iTWire video with top Australian IT executives. I have with me today Lincoln Goldsmith. He's the General Manager, Australia and New Zealand of Acronis. Welcome to the program, Lincoln.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, please give us a bit of a quick wrap about yourself. You started in November, and then a bit of a history about Acronis.
Sure, yeah. So I became the General Manager of Acronis Australia and New Zealand in November of last year. Prior to that, I've been in the IT industry over 10 years now. Started in a distribution, a very small distribution company as a BDM. Moved into a systems integrator role for the next 3 years for a company, XSI Data Solutions. And then took my travels overseas. When I was younger and finished school, went and travelled and lived in Japan. So I wanted to use my language skills and in my career essentially. So I actually then took myself off to Japan where I worked for Meta.
Cool.
I was their global accounts manager, so I literally looked after Wall Street during the financial crash, if you like. Lehman Brothers were a good customer for one day, and then the next day gone. So that was really
an
interesting
experience.
Times. Yeah, definitely to watch it from the sidelines, so to speak.
You were watching the Wolves of Wall Street from another country.
Exactly. So working with Citigroup through their trials and Lehman Brothers and all of that, it was a really interesting time.
So how did you get back to Acronis?
So look, I dragged my unsuspecting wife over there for a couple of years, and it sort of came time. She said, "Don't need to go home and start." She started her own business, and she thought, "I now need to be back in Australia to give that a good go." So we came back, and I then started with Commvault, and I was their director of channels for APJ for several years, and then moved on from Commvault to a small startup, and wanted to work for a small, private, very nimble, very agile company, and really wanted to build something where if I increased by 10%, well, the business increases 10%. I really wanted to make a big difference and come from an entrepreneurial family, so there was a little bit of that in me, I guess you could say.
Yeah, great.
And that was great, but 3 months into that, we got acquired and went from 300 people globally to 43,000 people globally. So that kind of ruined the plans of a small, nimble, private company.
Yeah, that's it.
And that then led me to Acronis, where I started as the sales director for the mobility portfolio and was in that position for 6 months, and then transitioned to the general manager role.
Right, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, I'd imagine a lot of people watching would know about Acronis, but just give us the history. Obviously it's backup, but what else does it do?
Sure. So look, Acronis, a lot of people know Acronis from TrueImage, which is our consumer product. It's where we came from, that disc imaging, that bare metal restore. That was really, I guess, where I first heard of Acronis and first learned of Acronis. So
Me too.
We're a privately owned company. Our CEO is majority shareholder. He's a Russian-born Singaporean resident, based out of Singapore, which is our new international headquarters. We relocated that last year. And look, we've really taken the focus of the company back to its technical roots, and we have 4 pillars of our business, and one of those pillars is cloud. The second is mobility, where we're looking at the secure access to files from remote devices, so essentially a corporate version of the cloud-based products that we see out in the market today. We then have our consumer products, still very strong in this particular region and globally, and then our core products as well, which is our backup, recovery, disaster recovery. So we've had a number of acquisitions over the last year. We acquired a Backup Agent and Nscale, which is a DR as a service product portfolio that we're currently in the process of integrating. And about 2 years ago, we acquired a company called Group Logic, which is the mobility play. And this was really all spawned out of our CEO's vision and where he wants to take the company and how he wants to build a cohesive story of what we call any data, and the ability to manage any data, whether it's sitting on your personal computer, your laptop, your devices, wherever it is, so we can manage any data, anywhere, anytime, on any device. And that's really the direction we're going, with a very strong focus on cloud.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to your new service, Acronis Backup as a Service. So please tell us about that.
So look, Acronis Backup as a Service, it is as it sounds, but it's got a couple of very unique pieces to it that really is going to enable not only our end users to benefit more out of cloud, but also our resellers and our systems integrators that we currently deal with. Cloud, everyone's talking about it. I heard
it's one of the buzzword, hybrid cloud.
It is, and I think that the best quote I've heard about cloud is, when you're looking at it from a distance, it's all nice, but when it settles down to earth, it's just fog and mist. And for a lot of people, I think it is. People they hear it, they know the word, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah, and what are the real benefits?
But what are the benefits, and what does it mean for them as a business in transforming from the perpetual model of licensing, where you had a sale, you get it in one shot, you move on, to cloud, where it becomes subscription based. So your back-end processes of actually managing not one transaction, but 12, because it's a monthly subscription. What does that mean for your sales teams in terms of compensations and commissions, and how do you restructure your internal business processes to adapt to that change? Do you go dive into the deep end and go all cloud, or do you take a staggered approach? So what we're doing with our backup as a service and our product, it's multi-tenanted. We back up the data as you would expect, but it's also multi-tiered, and that's the real key for what our backup as a service is. We enable IT providers, systems integrators, and distributors, telcos, whomever it might be, the ability to come on board with Acronis backup as a service, but then not only be able to offer that potentially directly to their end customers, but as a small IT provider, I have some customers who want to start pushing data off to the cloud. If I don't have the infrastructure myself, how can I still maintain those relationships and those customers? With our multi-tiered backup as a service product, I can then front-end Acronis backup as a service hosted by distributor X or telco X, and on-sell it to my customers, and then I become another tier in that model. So we have the ability to multi-tier that backup. So I can then, so to speak, dip my toe in the water of backup as a service. How viable is it? Is this something I really want to get into going forward? But also for the larger providers who do have the infrastructure, made the investment, well, not only can I sell directly to my end users, but I can actually create my own channel now. I can derive new channels of revenue into my business by supporting and providing that backup as a service capability with your secure logins, secure interfaces, all the own, they can white label it, they can do
I was going to say, can people put their own brands
Absolutely,
on it?
they can white label it. So then, the systems integrators, the MSPs who don't have the investment can still be able to provide that.
Sure. So, clearly you've explained a little bit about the business model, but, is this the general direction the industry is going? I mean, data protection is clearly a very important thing. People can't afford to. It's like insurance. You can't afford not to have it. If your data goes, if you get ransomware attacked, you're in deep trouble.
Absolutely.
So, what's the business model here in terms of what is the pricing that for people who want to white label this? I'm a little IT shop. I look after a number of clients. What is it going to cost me to take advantage of this service?
So look, we have a number of different models of implementation. We have an on-premise implementation, which is where the large-scale infrastructure providers, the telcos, can actually host the Acronis backup as a service, utilising their infrastructure and sell that out. We also have hybrid, which is whereby they have the infrastructure, but the management layer resides with Acronis.
Yep.
So the metadata and etc. And then we have the full cloud, which is where it can just be all pushed off to, the Acronis data center or another data center of their choosing. So look, we do see that more and more companies will start pushing off to the cloud. There's that whole argument of CapEx versus OpEx. There's the argument of how can we reduce our expenditure? What do we do in terms of skilled staff? Is it a shortage? So how can we manage this mountains of data that is continuing to grow year on year at exceptional rates? I mean, everything we do on these things, photos, emails, Twitter feeds, it's just we are continuously producing data, and so companies are now looking for smarter ways to manage that data, but derive the value from the data. So if it's non-mission critical, or how they behave with that. So we do see that more and more cloud, as it becomes more mature and people start to get more of a grasp and understanding of what that actually means to them, because it means different things to everybody.
Sure.
That we'll start to see them start to push more and more data off to that, and more services off, infrastructure, software, platform, application, lots of as-a-service models coming out.
So what are the sort of, where does the pricing start?
So the pricing
obviously it's different for each tier.
Well, generally, if you're looking at, simply if I was the IT provider and going, it's a capacity base. So it's based on the amount of capacity I'm using at its simplest form.
Number of terabytes.
Number, it's per gigabyte pricing.
Gigabyte,
so absolutely. It's just very simply modeled on usage, and through their own login, they can see how much their customers are using the chargeback. It's all automated reporting, so it makes it very simple. And that's really the most basic form of what we have. Of course, with the on-premise, there's a different sort of pricing model, but the one we think we'll see a lot of is really that per gigabyte pricing.
Sure. And you know, one of the things that I hear from companies that work in data centers and cloud is that they talk about a very quick restore time. So when something goes down, you want to be able to recover in seconds or minutes.
Yes.
You know, how quickly will people be able to recover their systems using Acronis backup services?
Yeah, absolutely true, Alex. And what we see is that it's that disaster recovery as a service piece. And this is where the company Nscaled, which we recently acquired at the tail end of last year, comes into play. Nscaled, if you look on the Forrester Wave, it's actually right up there with some of the biggest names in the world around you know, disaster recovery names.
Yeah. So this is what you've acquired to be able to deliver this.
Absolutely.
Very fast restore.
And the further we go down the track with our development, the more integrated it will become, and then it will be a seamless approach from your backup to your DR as a service, etc. And that's going to allow people to be able to actually create a disaster recovery copy, but in the cloud.
Yeah.
So usually you have infrastructure here,
and you've got to wait to restore
have the same
that.
infrastructure here. So you spend 100,000 here, you have to spend 100,000 here, and then it's the quick switch over. However, what DR as a service does with Nscaled or Acronis Nscaled, it allows you to actually create a DR copy
and then run
in the cloud,
and then run it from the cloud
whilst
you're restoring to
whilst you're coming back, your infrastructure's coming back online, and then once that's back online, we pull everything back, and it actually uses purely just a copy of the backup.
Yeah.
So you're backing up the data anyway. Why not use that in a smarter way? And that's what we do with our DR as a service, is enable that backup copy to become valuable in a DR situation.
And what about like if my personal machine goes down and I've got it backed up with this new backup as a service, can I spin up a virtual instance of my Windows installation, for example, and run it through someone else's machine through a secure username and password?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, and that's, you know, obviously the speed to backup or speed to recovery as well is going to be related to where the data center sits, which data center you're backing up to. You know, the other unique thing that it's not unique, but it's something that we're really putting a lot of emphasis on, is the ability to give a seamless transition from on-premise to cloud. Because we have a lot of customers who've invested in Acronis, who've been very good customers with us over the years, have our on-premise solution.
And that's the whole hybrid cloud.
And they want to start to push off, right? Yeah, so we can now provide that seamless transition using their perpetual licensing to start pushing data and information off to the cloud as they feel comfortable.
Sure. And I mean, I noticed you mentioned you can have you can use whatever data center you want. You know, you can have your own internal systems. But where are Acronis's data centers located?
Yeah, so currently we have data centers in Singapore, Japan, Europe, and the US, and we're currently in the process of working on a data center here in Australia.
I was about to say,
so
you're going to build one here.
Absolutely. With with recent government legislation, I mean, not
We've
only
got mandatory data retention. They're talking about
exactly that, and the metadata for certain financial companies now no longer being able to reside outside of the shores. But just also from a speed and efficiency point of view, we wanted to have that management layer and that data center available here to our customers to utilize as well.
And I don't know if you can talk about it, but is this a data center you'll build yourselves, or will you do it in partnership with the NextDCs or the Equinixes of the world?
And that's what we're looking at the moment. We're currently going through the various models of what's going to best suit us, but also what's going to best suit the needs of our customers. Locations, costs, all of those sort of things.
Bandwidth and all the rest.
That's right.
So, how do you think the storage and backup industry will look like over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, you know, we were playing before with some of these virtual reality headsets, which made me think of Johnny Mnemonic and all of those scenes where you're sort of visually playing with the internet. You could imagine, you know, flying through your backup set trying to pull individual files, but in a sense that's also a bit silly.
Well, I think, you know, one of my favourite scenes was the Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where he's got the glove and everything's sort of in front of him and he's swiping and you know, grabbing and expanding and doing all of that, and I love that. And you know, you thought it was far away, but now they have those infrared keyboards that you now see that you know, projects a keyboard and away you type. But look, I think in terms of data, it's still a company's most valued asset.
We're going to get to yettabyte and zettabyte scale.
Well, exactly, we have to get there first. And look, I still think we're getting to see some changes in terms of how people deal with their data. I think that's inevitable. We're already seeing that now. You know, people used to talk of cloud as it's coming, well, cloud's here. How people adopt it. I think what we're going to see more and more is how people continue to push workloads off to the cloud, whether they still have that, you know, rent versus buy mentality. Will we start to see the scales shift a little bit, where it's potentially an 80-20 at the moment, you know, a lot of it's perpetual on site? Will that start to shift? And I think we will start seeing some wholesale changes in not only how people manage their data, but also how they derive value from the data they're actually managing, protecting and storing.
Sure. Do you think Acronis will ever get into the whole big data scenario of analysing and analytics and all the rest? I mean, that's probably separate to your core foundation, but maybe...
Look, it's certainly a possibility. We have over 650 staff globally, of which 330 are engineers, top level engineers.
Yeah.
So we are very technology heavy, not sales, not marketing. We're very technology heavy. We're also developing an engineering and development team based out of Singapore. We're working with universities throughout the region along sort of those cooperative lines of building and developing technology. So certainly down the track, you know, potentially if we touch the data and we see the data and we know where it resides and we manage it, it could be a logical step to then say, well, let's look at analysing.
Might be another acquisition to come.
It could be. Well, you know, we do have a lot of very, very smart heads, so it could be acquisition, could be just, like you said, a general evolution of what it is we're doing.
Yeah, now I always like to change gears a little bit towards the end of the interview and just ask you to share the best piece of advice that you ever received that's helped you get to where you are today.
Best piece of advice I've ever received was, if you do the same thing tomorrow that you did yesterday, you'll fail. And really behind that, what that says to me, just in general, it's can keep evolving, keep changing, keep looking. Don't rest on your laurels, sit on your hands. Keep pushing the boundaries, you know, throw yourself into that deep end and see how you grow. And that's really why I threw myself into Japan straight out of high school. That's why I looked for that next challenge of moving from a large, you know, hyper-growth business and move into a private company with a very strong entrepreneurial flair to it and a lot of entrepreneurial leaders in it, to really challenge and push the boundaries of what I'm doing personally, but also be able to influence what the company is doing as well. So
makes me think Acronis won't just be doing backup, it'll be doing forward up.
Potentially, absolutely.
So do you have any final messages for iTWire readers and viewers and for your current and potential customers and also partners? We see the partner program behind you there.
Yeah, look, I think you know, first of all, thank you to yourself, Alex, and to iTWire, but also thank you to our customers and partners. Acronis has been through a lot of changes. We have seen changes both in the top level management, but we're really now, I feel, getting to the Acronis that I think we all knew and we all loved, and we're setting some really great foundations here in Australia and New Zealand, particularly with the partner program. That's going to be a massive step forward for us in how we work with the channel, building out our scale through the channel. We want the channel to be profitable and successful selling with Acronis. So there's a lot of exciting stuff. We have product releases or versions coming out every month of this year. So a very busy schedule in terms of roadmaps, new programs, our BAS launch here tonight. So certainly over the next 8 months or the rest of this year, expect to see a lot from Acronis and hear a lot more from us. But certainly if anybody is interested in finding out more, we'd certainly love to hear from you.
Great, thank you very much and arigatou gozaimashita.
Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.